Alrighty, folks, we are at day 7 of our 10-day boot camp. We've been through a lot together. This is going to be the show where we really can go lots of different angles based on your question. The intent of this show is really a couple of fold. One, again, much like Dion's conversation, we all start somewhere. We heard last week where Dion started with $300,000 in negative equity, was a single parent to 3, $17 an hour, and he made it work. With Matt, we're going to hear about being a ninth grade dropout. Didn't even make it past the ninth grade. Typically speaking, that does not set you up for success. So we will start with the struggle. We'll talk about things that went through that. We'll talk about the '08 crash and how it impacted him. But then we'll talk about house hacking. How important was that for him? We'll talk about something he created called the 4-3-2-1 strategy. And then most importantly, and probably most of this conversation, we'll talk about, oh, blank, you're a landlord. Because as you know, with the three amigos, Dion is responsible for getting people out of the parking lot into the stands. I try to take you from the stands to the field. And then once on the field, it is all this guy. So there is nobody better on the team that has a handle on what's going on as a self-manager, construction experience and all of that. So Matt, there will be a lot of people watching this because just like Dion, I want to give this out to the world. Okay. So most people probably haven't heard of you and your story. Give us 2 or 3 minutes on who you are.
So, well, good morning, all you hard workers. Good to be with you guys. So my name is Matt. I'm the lumberjack landlord. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. Zuber and I have about the same amount of time in the business. We both lived in the .com bomb, working in tech. We both made it through 08, 07, 08, in different ways. Mike did a better job of making it through that period than I did. But yeah, I started my journey, ninth grade dropout, understood I was bored out of my mind in school, very entrepreneurial. I opened my first business when I was 11 years old. I was mowing lawns and delivering newspapers. And then I got into sports cards and started selling sports memorabilia. And so I kind of always had a job, and I always worked a ton. And I really liked working because I really liked achieving things, and being able to get things. And so when I finally got old enough, and I had a real job, I started looking at real estate because I didn't like the stock market. It was too unpredictable. It's an inside job. You can believe what you will. But I don't live in Manhattan. And so I don't get whisper numbers at parties. So from my perspective, I wanted something that it was the great equalizer, which was, it was about my market, what I could understand about my market. I failed in a couple markets. I guess you could say failed. I bought a condo just outside of Boston. Huge fail. I house hacked. I had a roommate that paid. And then when I went to go sell, I got hit with a $70,000 assessment because it was a condo. It wiped out every dime of my equity. And so I was able to sell, thankfully, and not have to write a check, but I walked out of something where I should have walked with 80 grand and I walked with 10. And then
that was a special assessment, right?
That was special assessment. Yeah. The previous contractor used the wrong type of siding for where the building was located, close to the ocean. And he was bankrupt. So we couldn't get any money. So the special assessment. And so I tried house hacking that way, but then I really liked that. I was like, I can get a whole lot more house if I'm hacking. And I did it with roommates, or a roommate in that particular case. Bought a single family house, did the same thing with roommates. But I was in my early 20s. Like, I'm not unrealistic to think.
Single.
Yeah, single. Yeah, single, no kids, no wife, no girlfriend, nothing. Literally nothing. Just me and my career, just a workaholic. And so I loved that, and it was great. But then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I kind of hate having roommates. And so then I said, I need to do multifamily, because I can live in my own unit, and then the other 2 people living there in the other units can pay my mortgage. And then I did my first one, and then I went to go do my second one, and the bank said, oh no, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? They're like, you can't go from a 3 to a 4. I was like, what? Where is that rule written? They're like, well, now we believe that you're using our loans for investment purposes. And these were FHA loans. So they said, we think you're losing it for investment purposes. I said, no, I'm trying to move. And they said, yeah, we're not going to approve that. So I learned that was what birthed the 4-3-2-1, was the fact that if you go in that type of fashion where you start at the 4, you go to the 3, you go to the 2, you go to the 1, you can usually go across from a 4 to a 4. You can justify that it's in a better neighborhood. You can justify it's a better commuting location. You can justify all these other types of things, but that's kind of where that came from. But fast forward now, 46, 137 units. We'll be up to 148 by spring next year because we've got 2 development projects we're working on. We'll be at 148 or 160 something, depends on what gets approved. But now I've done everything. I've bought from every source you can buy from. I've bought from tax recoveries. I've bought from short sale. I've bought, you name it, I've bought it. I've bought private. I've bought wholesale. I've bought, seller finance. I've bought 50-40-10 strategy. You name it, I've bought it that way, except for sub 2. There's things about sub 2 that make me uncomfortable. But that's all right. We'll leave those big boy pants in the corner. I'm going to not put those on. Those don't fit for me and my strategy and what I want to do. But fast forward. So that's where we are now. 137. I self-manage. And my kind of plan is essentially acquisition, stabilization, optimization. Most landlords never get to optimization. Most are barely at stabilization. And that's why the first 5 years sucks, is because people really need to focus on how to get that asset really, truly under control, stabilized, but now also optimize it. So you then have greater returns, and then banks are far more likely to work with you and lend with you.
Yeah. I think in Dion's story, I think he said he's on his 3rd house hack. I think I remember a conversation with you years ago. You have been through a
9.
significantly nine
in 13 years.
And more importantly, was it 6 of those was with your girlfriend/wife?
So,
Ashley?
5 of those. So 5 of those were with, my wife. When we were boyfriend, girlfriend, I didn't want her living with me.
Okay. So when you were married, you
Yes.
did that 5 times.
Yes.
Okay. Was that was always in units?
Yes.
With her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Yep. It was always in units. And so it was tries, and then a try, and then duplexes. All the rest of them after that were duplexes.
So as you're going through your journey, why don't we kind of it's not all sunshines and rainbows. The first 5 years suck. We've talked about that a bunch.
Yep, they do.
Where were you sitting when the 2008 environment just came out of left field? What'd you have, and what happened next?
A lot of debt I had. In 2008 when that happened. So I saw it kind of a coming in 2007, but there wasn't anything I could do with it. I was fully leveraged. It was like literally watching a train crash that you couldn't do anything about. And so I was pretty heavily leveraged. And
was it all fixed rate debt? Sorry.
It was, yeah.
So you didn't have any of these crazy arms.
No, okay,
good.
I was always looking at my friends. I think I would have lost all my properties if I had those.
Oh, no, you absolutely would have.
So not having them saved me, even though in the first 2 years before it, I was like, damn, I'd like some of that really cheap debt. That'd be great. But couldn't get it. And so for some reason or another, I wasn't able to get it. And so, so we did that. And in August of 2008, I had 8 paying units. In September of 2008, I had 3 paying units. In October of 2008, I had 1 paying unit.
Oof.
I went 8-3-1. So I had 1 person paying their rent and the other 7 decided not to pay. So I was in the position where I was literally saving up to evict people. That was my option. So that's where you learn to do a whole lot of stuff yourself, is when you can't afford to pay anybody to do it.
Yeah. And that time frame for you, how long was that struggle? Was that like 18 months to kind of get to the other side where you finally could take a breath?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I would say it was probably a couple of years. So a couple of years are really, really hard. And then I couldn't buy investment property without moving into it because I needed to be able to buy it for 3.5 or 5% down.
Right.
So I couldn't, my only option was, if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to go live in it and fix it up while you're in it. But that's where I did 203Ks. I did 203K streamline loans. I was doing those when Kevin was still working at Jamba Juice. I like Kevin.
No, yeah, 203K loan is the way to go. So, for people that don't know what it is, talk about why it's important, why you were able to leverage that to keep going.
Yeah, so a 203K, there's two versions of it. Most people don't know that. There's something called a 203K Streamline, and there's something called a 203K. A 203K is basically a construction loan, but it's done on an FHA property. The only downside to those products is that they don't let you GC the deal yourself. You actually have to hire a GC. Everybody has to be a third-party contractor. And so that makes it kind of challenging because that's one of the ways that I save. And that's how I learned construction was I was my own GC. And so, which is a general contractor. And they require that on those deals. So on the 203K, it's basically a construction loan. You get two numbers when you get it appraised. You get something called an as is number, and you get something called an as complete number. The as is number is as the building sits today. The as complete number is here's what the appraiser believes it's worth when the project is done. Then you're paying that 3.5% down of the bigger number,
right?
Or the 5% down of the bigger number. Then there's something called a streamline, which is a limited at $35,000. However, that process, 35 grand, gets you pretty far when it comes to rehabbing a unit to make it go from gross to livable. It's not going to give you all that you need to gut to studs, but it's going to give you all that you need to get a lot of stuff good and upgraded and taken care of for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this more because again, I'm looking at where the opportunities are going to be for people today. And I still think if you're playing below the median in most markets, not everywhere, but most markets, if the property passes FHA or VA inspections today, those are still moving.
Yes.
Probably shocking people how fast they move.
Yes.
But it's the ugly duckling.
It is.
The ones that don't do FHA, the ones that smell bad, the ones that haven't been touched since the 80s. This is why so I don't know if this can happen, but I'm going to ask. Can you 203K a multi-unit house hack? Can you live in one unit and do that?
Yep.
Ooh, that gets sexy.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I did. I did two of them. They were awesome. I did 203Ks streamlines. I didn't even do the big full dock ones. I just did the streamlines.
So you're buying multi-units.
Yep.
You're moving in. You're spending in the streamline up to 35 grand, which you get in draws as works complete.
Two draws. Yep. You only get two draws. That's where they help cut down the costs. Because on the big 203K full blowns, it's like $300 or $500 every single time one of those guys shows up to give you a draw. And that's where the streamline comes in, is that you get a draw in the beginning, and then when you start, showing all these different pieces and parts, and hey, I've spent the money on materials, I've paid deposits for contractors, then you are able to get that money. And then the next one you get is when the job is complete and they pay it off.
All right. Yeah. Cause I think where the opportunities, every market's hard. Real estate investing is always hard. It's just a different kind of hard. Today, you've got to I'm looking for larger days on market. I'm looking for non-beautiful properties below the median.
Yep.
I'm looking for ways to add values, buying twos, creating threes, right? Adding a door, a wall, a closet, all of the stuff that you're well aware of. There's plenty of opportunity, but it just takes more work. And if you can understand the lending options on top of that, 203K, multi-unit, fixer-upper, good stuff happens.
Yeah, I think the key to it is that, earlier in my career, I was only buying off MLS. And Dion only buys off MLS.
Yeah.
And that's great, but it drastically slows down the pace by which you can grow. And no offense to Dion, it also drastically reduces the amount of deals you see and quite frankly, the home runs that you can hit. If you're only looking at MLS, you can still hit a home run. It's really few and far between, though. That's really hard to do. If you're getting stuff from wholesalers, from agents that do off-market stuff, if you've done some sort of a little mailer yourself where you've driven for dollars in your area, there's all these different ways where you can create opportunity. And that is by far a better opportunity for anybody. And those are the deals. My biggest home runs were deals that I either created myself or deals that I got from a wholesaler.
Yeah.
I'm going to make $1 million on one of my deals that I did with a wholesaler, and I bought it from him 2 years ago. I'll make $1 million on that deal.
Yeah. I think one of the keys that you're sharing with folks, and I agree with and try to repeat it as often as I can, is tell everybody your buy box. Don't scream it. Don't be shy. Don't hide it. It's not about competition. You just never know who's going to be like, oh, my next door neighbor's grandmother's dog walker.
You never know. I literally got I literally got my best lead that I've gotten in the last 5 years from a tenant's boyfriend.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Tenant's boyfriend. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, yeah, my girlfriend rents from you. I was like, awesome. Who's your girlfriend? And he said who it was. I said, sure. She's great. He's like, yeah. He goes, are you ever interested in looking at other properties? He's like, I'm kind of getting into real estate and I found this one deal and it's kind of like what she lives in now. Is it something you'd be interested in? I said, absolutely. Would love that. So when we did a deal, I actually overpaid him. He asked for, I think, like a $10,000 assignment fee and I gave him 15.
Yeah.
Some people are like, why would you give him more money? Because I got to see the next 5 deals he created. And one of those deals was my $1 million deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to be, being first in line is important.
Always.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So very, very cool. So I'd be remiss if we didn't. So you went through, you got started, you had a hard couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
you're coming out of this. And now as you opened, right, over 100 units, what was the big catalyst? What was the thing you look back and like, hey, that was a game changer?
Having the processes in place for explosive growth. You and I had a little bit of an advantage, right? We've both run startups. We've both done startup on products.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when they go, okay, when you start being successful, we're going to put some money into this. You're like, I need some money to start with first.
Yeah. Thank you for that idea. But next, yeah.
And so the idea is if you understand your process and you understand exactly how to evaluate a deal and you understand who you're going to call when the plumbing doesn't work at 3:00 in the morning, when you understand that stuff, that gives you the capacity and the ability to expand. And if you don't have that and you're expanding through the process, you're always going to be banging your head against the wall and you're always going to be saying to yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? It is worth it. The issue is that most landlords are not business owners. And so they haven't put themselves in a position where they know where they understand what business owners understand. So I've run many small businesses. I've grown them to 10, 20, $30 million for other people. And so knowing what it takes to run a business, and that's really the key, is understanding, having processes in place, having the network in place, that allows you to expedite growth. And then it came down to the last step was funding. How did I get that additional funding? Well, my returns were great. I could show my bank, and I shopped myself to my bank. And I said, you guys aren't taking the gamble on me, but with a backing asset of a house. And those are the kinds of conversations that small banks want to have. They're in the community, of the community, for the community. You need to get them on board with what you're trying to accomplish. And there's small banks in all of our areas that their charter is to be part of the community.
Yeah.
And invest.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things that you bring that really none of the other, what we call the Avengers, right? Mike, Dion, I, and yourself, was building that relationship with the small banks on purpose.
Yes.
So talk about how you make those introductions, how you go forward, how you continually build on those, because that really was the game changer. Because I don't think you're at your unit count today without those relationships, because you leaned on them hard in 2020 and 2021.
I did. It was, I have 3 banks that I work with. One of them has a lion's share of my business because she's the best to work with. The other 2 guys aren't as easy to work with, but she's fantastic. And she never says no. She always says, okay, let's see how we can do this. And I say, when you go to lending committee, because that's what all of these small banks do, once a week, they go to loan committee and they review every single deal in these smaller banks. Right. And when I say smaller banks, we're talking between $1 billion and $2 billion in assets. We're not talking about.
So how many branches you think these are? Like 3,
usually
4 branches?
Usually you're between 3 and 7.
Okay.
You're usually between 3 and 7 branches.
Okay.
And that's a small enough company where they probably have 2 or 3 or 4 loan officers. And so the person that you're looking for is the senior lender. That's the key. That's the person that holds the keys to the kingdom, is the senior lender, because that senior lender decides what they're pinning their rates to. Are they going off of a prime rate? Are they going off of FHLB? Are they going off of Fed? What are they basically pegging the rate to? And then they add their margin on. So when you guys see on TV that the Fed's 5 or something like that, or 4 3/4, When you
5
say it
years.
on TV, every bank then says, well, we have margin that we add on top of that. That's our cost of doing business. So they have to buy the dollars at 5% or 5% interest. They're then selling those dollars or lending them out at 7.5% interest. What most people don't know, and they don't talk about it often enough, is they don't talk about their deposits. The deposits are what matters. And here's why it matters. When you talk to a bank, every dollar you deposit, they can lend out 9. It's called fractional banking. So they can lend out $9 for every $1 in deposits you bring in. So when I bring them a project and I show them, hey guys, it's $8,000 a month. One of the parts of my slide literally says, this allows you 8 times 9, 72. It allows you $72,000 more a month of lending. I'm speaking banker. I have never seen
they're
any
paying
other
you,
investor. Ever other
and
investor present that way.
And they're paying you 1% and they're charging 7.
Not even 1.
On a much
literally,
bigger,
literally a tenth of 1% is what they're paying in that savings account. However, the idea is that I will bring my deposits into that bank. I'll have my savings somewhere else. Sometimes I'll leave my savings, or at least a $250,000 account with a bank like that. But the big thing is, you guys need to talk about your deposits. When you're doing a project and you're trying to get the loan, tell them we're going to bring all those deposits in.
Yeah, it's really funny that, but I think I shared this on my channel. I got a call from a bank that has one of my commercial loans. Basically called me up, started whispering sweet nothings like, hey, we'll give you a better rate, blah, blah, blah. And kind of the punchline was, you got to bring 100 grand. I think it was like 75 grand.
Yep.
Because we're only doing, preferred lending.
Sure.
Now. Yep. So again, having those conversations, understanding the banks, especially small banks, is a great conversation.
Every single bank, literally every bank right now, the biggest concern that they have is deposits. Because whether they need to be able to lend out, but they also need to be able to cover the crap loans that they have, because all of them have some of these bad, crappy workout loans that they're working through. They need to have, in order, if they don't have deposits growing, the challenge that they have is that then they need to start charging more margin on their loans. When they charge more margin on their loans, they get less business. And likely the only person that's out there overpaying for their loan is somebody that shouldn't be getting that loan in the first place. Somebody that's definitely more capitally tight, tight on capital. So for me, every conversation, I got told yes by one of my banks 2 weeks ago on a deal. 2 days later, they yanked my letter. They said, we're not going to do the deal with you. I was like, it's not a good idea, guys. And the banker went to the senior lender and said, we can't yank this. This is a really bad idea. He said, I understand he's your top client. We're still yanking the deal. So they killed my deal. They didn't kill my deal. They killed my offer from that bank. I went and I shopped it, and I literally told the other one, because I have another project going on. I shopped with 3 or 4 other banks, and I got a bank that basically reached back out to me and said, we want it. We want all $20,000 a month of deposits that project's going to bring in when it's done. Yeah. And we will do the deal for, we'll do the deal for you at 7.4, which is a outrageously cheap rate right now.
Yeah. Good for you. Well, let's flip the script to why you're really here. And that is, oh crap, I'm a landlord. You're the hands-on guy. I am. Right. Yep. Olivia and I embarrassingly tried to paint a 2-bedroom apartment one time. It was horrible. It had to be redone. I'm decently handy, but have no interest in doing anything 2.5 hours away.
Agreed. Yeah. Sure.
One way, right? Not a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't you break down, why did you do everything yourself? Probably because you had to. And
broke.
Now it's, you're broke, no money. But just talk about that experience, and then why you're helping people understand, even if you have a property manager like me, you're helping people understand how not to get ripped off. So talk about all that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys can check out the course syllabus that I have, but basically it just talks about how to interact, how to do all the things. I was sitting at the closing table on my first deal. And on my first real deal, not my very first deal where I like house hacked with a roommate buddy of mine. But on my very first deal where it was a real investment property, it was like, this is what I'm doing now. And I literally sat at the table and I said, oh shit, I'm a landlord. Now what? I was like, I don't have an estoppel, which lists the tenants and their phone numbers and current on rent. I didn't have any of that stuff. It was just, there were no courses then. There was nothing available then. There was only like these big, huge, expensive, go to a hotel for 3 days and spend $5,000. I didn't have that. Didn't have that money. And so for me, it was, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm completely stuck. I don't know how to find tenants. I don't know how to do anything. And so I just tried to put myself in that beginner's shoes and say, okay, I lived it. What are all the things that I needed then that I've built over the last 20 years that make managing my business more fun, but also far more profitable? I know what something should cost. When somebody gives me a quote and they say, yeah, to sheetrock that job, it's going to be $30,000. I can go, sure. How many sheets? And they're like, what? I'm like, how many sheets? Like 225 sheets, $30,000 for 225 sheets. That's a cute number. I was like, why are we charging 140 a sheet? And instantly you're talking contractor with them. And they're like, well, I think we could work on that number. Oh, you think we could work on that number? And that's the thing is contractors are not all of them are not inherently dishonest. All of them are not that way. So I don't want you guys thinking that, but they will price things just like anybody else will, which is, here's what the number is. And then they're probably willing to work with you if you can have the right conversation with them. I get thousands of dollars knocked off my projects all the time because I have them walk me through it. And I'm like, listen, I want you to make money. I get it. You just can't hit a home run off of me or a triple off of me. I'm going to be one of your single double guys. I'm going to keep on giving you work. We're going to keep on doing projects because I'm going to keep on expanding. But here's how we have to do things. Here's what's fair. So we negotiate rates. We negotiate price per sheet. We negotiate, painting and how that works. Who buys the painting? They're like, well, we'll buy all the materials. You can open up a trust, which you should have your properties in, at least a trust or an LLC, either one. But if you have them in a trust, you still have an EIN number. And that EIN number can be your social. It can be the EIN of the actual trust itself. But then you can buy everything at a contractor price, which might be 10 or 20% off. So not only are you getting 10 or 20% off of retail, but you're not paying them 10% to carry your cost. Why would you want to do that? So you can save 20, 30 points percent on even materials. So that's where the course came from. Was I wanted to help people. My projects now, inflation adjusted, my projects now cost me a whole lot less than they did years ago because I know all the ins and outs. I know how to speak construction, and I'm not a construction guy. I just learned the trade and understood how deals were negotiated. And you don't want to be the person that's just like, you can do it for less. You can do it for less. You can do it because you're going to find your level. You're going to find bad contractors that way. You want to find good contractors with good, that they can count on you. Like as soon as my stuff passes inspection, I show up to the inspection with my checkbook with the contractor. When the inspector walks us through and he goes, nope, I think we're all good. Just change that one thing or fix that one or two things. That guy, I said, fix those now. We'll take a picture of them. We'll send them an email to the inspector. I'll pay you. It's just that simple. I pay right away. And they don't, it's not this net 30 stuff. Plenty of contractors get burned.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the big things I've done my whole career for big jobs. Anything in the beginning, anything over $1,000 now, a couple of grand is pay upon delivery, right? Once it passes inspection. It just you jump to the line. And then when you have a storm or you have something else, you get a little love. You get to go first. Right.
Sure.
It's a people business, as we keep reminding folks.
Absolutely.
One of the big things I want to do before we go to questions, remember, folks, you're going to get to ask your burning desired questions of the lumberjack in a minute. So raise your hand. I want to go through the big items, Matt.
Yeah.
And just help people understand rough costs. Now, these are obviously rough costs for you.
Yep.
But I think it's important because one of the things they're doing on their spreadsheet is make ready, right?
Yep.
What I call an A is 0. It's ready. B is, paint and carpet. C is kind of full gut. And one of the things I want people to remember, I think this was, this might have been 18 months ago. I told you about one of my apartment buildings. I was putting on a massive roof.
Yeah. Like 66 square, I think it was.
Yeah. You asked me, how big. I had the quote in front of me. I told you quoted it within like $200.
Yeah.
It was
close.
I mean, I was shocked. It also made me feel better that I got a great deal, but that's a different story. But let's walk through a house real quick. Let's make it a house.
Sure.
Let's assume it's 1,500 square feet, just so we kind of
Sure.
level set.
Yep.
Painting an exterior of a house. Let's say, two different colors, right? The base color and the trim.
Mhm.
What's a kind of rough number you would kind of just ballpark for folks?
Yeah, usually you're about $6. For a decent painter, usually you're about $6 a square foot.
Okay.
On the inside. On the outside, because on the inside you have to do trim. You have to do your doors, you have to do your baseboard, you have to do all that stuff. So usually inside, $6. I mean, again, test your market. But when they come back at $6, these are the numbers that I carry when I walk through a property. So I walk through a property and I'm like, okay, the building is 3,200 square feet. It's going to cost me, at the high end retail, it's going to cost me 18 grand or 19, 2, somewhere around there. And then I know that my number is probably closer to $4 a square foot. So that way I know, okay, this job's going to cost me about 13,000 bucks. The other key too is that when you're quoting, when you're getting the quote from them, say, I just need to understand how much material, because I already have a contract with Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore or whomever, and I'll buy the product for you. Just tell me what it is. So
you're just labor.
Yep, you're just labor, which means for them, now it's your responsibility to get the product to the site. But most of these places offer a delivery.
Yep.
So just make sure, and that way you can have literally a handyman check up and make sure, hey, did the paint get delivered today? Hey, did the lumber get delivered today? Hey, did the trim get delivered today? Etc.
Okay.
So on painting, you're looking at, $4 to $6 a foot, depending on what you can negotiate.
And that obviously doesn't, take into account, busted up walls and drywall repairs, just basic stuff. Yep. If you're going to do the outside, are you like $4 or $5 a square foot?
Yeah, you're probably about, and you could be 3 to 4. Because again, that job can be a whole lot easier because they can just plastic off the windows, and then they just spray the entire thing, and then they go back and they cut in white.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay.
Let's go to flooring. You want to put carpet in the bedroom. What are you thinking?
Why?
Well,
no carpet in the bedroom, Michael. No,
okay,
we don't. So we don't do any carpet anywhere, only on the stairs, and we use 8-pound pad. Because what you'll find is if you ever go to court, the judge will say, well, the carpet's 5 years old. It's basically reached its life expectancy. It's on you. They actually give carpet a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. So very often, if you end up going to court or evicting somebody, and quite frankly, if they had pets, it's largely speaking, carpet's a bad idea. So we always use LVP. Our LVP price is usually about $250 a foot, a square foot. And then we can expect to pay depending on what we need for an underlayment. Sometimes we want to go with like a cushiony cork. Others we're trying to reduce noise. Others we're just saying, hey, based on what the subfloor is, it might be concrete. We're going to use a different kind of antimicrobial, so we don't end up with mold if there's any moisture and things like that. So you could be 50 cents to a square foot based on what you're going to do for flooring. And then installation. You can find people that are willing to charge you as much as $3 or $4 a square foot. And you can also find crews that will show up in a van. It's usually Vietnamese crews is what I found in our area that will show up and they'll bang it out. They'll start at 8 in the morning. They'll go until 10 o'clock at night, but you're done. Right. And then they end up being around $1.75 a foot. So you see the difference in size. Now, is there going to be something that you're going to have your handyman 2 or 3 things, 4 things the handyman has to go back and repair? Yeah, probably. But at that $1 a foot or $2 a foot savings, the handyman's really cheap compared to paying for the guy that does a perfect job on the front side. Right. There's usually 2 or 3 small issues that I can fix.
How about windows? A lot of older homes, at least in my area, need new windows. What do you pay for windows? And
windows you're usually looking for about $100 a window for install, but then you're looking at another 100, little over 100 when you want to trim that window out. And then it's just the cost of the window. And that can vary from a $99 special all the way up to what's called an STC rated window, which is you start at 100 decibels. It's minus 35 decibels. So it's only 65 decibels, which means it's 100 decibels outside is only 65 inside, and 100 is pretty loud. So if you're in a high traffic area, double yellow line, there's a lot of construction around you, i.e. like a dumpster company or something like that. You want to go with a higher end window, and that window might cost you $600, $700, $800. But you can get a normal standard window, which is an Energy Star window. You can get something that is what's called argon gas Energy Star. And that's kind of your base window that you want to use. Don't use the cheapies, but those will run you. They're basically custom windows, but you can find a local yard that builds them as opposed to like a Pella or an Anderson. If you do Pella or Anderson, take the time, multiply it times 2.
Yeah. Long lag.
Yeah. Long lag and big dollars. They're paying for all that advertising that we see for all those ads.
Exactly. All right. How about doors, right? There's obviously a difference between interior and exterior doors. What do you got for doors?
I like Therma-Tru doors. We use them almost exclusively on the outside of our stuff. They run between $500 and $600 in standard sizes. You can get a nice stylish door. It's not metal. It's actually a composite. It's a nice door. Easy to clean, easy to paint. It'll last probably 50 years. Those range depending on size between $500 and $700. You can get those at a lumber yard. You can also get them at a big box store, but I like them at a lumber yard better. And then interior doors, just pick a style and stick with it. So
yeah,
we use something called a Craftsman 3. We know that door costs us between $280 and $350, depending on the size. And that's the only door that we put in everywhere. So we've deployed 200 of those doors and we probably have another 200 to go, but that's a solid core door. If you're going to punch my door, I want your hand to hurt.
Yeah. So solid core. Yeah.
That solid core is going to likely break a knuckle, break a finger, at least leave you with a bruise where you're like, man, did I hit something? Yeah. I punched the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Idiot. Stop punching my doors.
If you want to punch my stuff, it's going to hurt.
Yeah. So let's go to the bathroom, right? You're buying a lot of stuff. So you go to a bathroom, it's got to be a full gut. What are you looking at doing? Let's assume single sink, full bath, shower combo. What are you doing in there?
Yeah, vanity's $200 to $500. Toilet, we use a Viper 2 toilet. That Viper 2 toilet is phenomenal. They rarely get clogged, and they're reasonably priced. They perform. Yes, I'm talking about toilet performance. They perform about as well as a $500 Kohler or $600 Kohler. And they have a version where you can get the round front or the elongated front, and that differs when you have space. So when you're looking at a bathroom, usually you're looking at that toilet costing you $300, the vanity costing $300 to $500. The mistake that most people make is they put in new tub surrounds or they do those horrible bath fittings. Don't ever do that stuff. That is outrageously overpriced and too expensive, and it doesn't really solve the problem. So we do a lot of bathrooms where we'll actually have the old bathtub. We'll have it sanded and reglazed, and that usually is $800 to $1,000. A plumber to pop that out and put in a new one is about $300. So it's about a third the price. And then as far as surrounds go, you can go with a plastic surround depending on the quality of the unit, but that plastic surround could cost you $800 to $1,000, and you can likely get it tiled for less than $200.
Yeah.
So those are the little things where it's like, then you're instantly taking your property up a notch. That's not the difference of it renting or not. That's the difference of it renting first or not compared to its competition. Okay. So yeah, so a bath, and then I would change out while you're doing all that work. I would change out something called the mixing valve, which is what actually mixes the water in the shower. And I like Delta and Kohler. Those are the two better brands for mixing valves and those products. And so you're probably $300, $400 for a nice setup that looks good.
So all in a new bathroom, you're about $5,000.
I can do a bathroom for less than $5,000. Most people, it costs them 10.
All right. So we'll call it 5. And now let's go into the kitchen, right? You're going into the kitchen. Let's assume you're painting the cabinets. You're maybe changing doors and hardware. You're changing the countertop.
But go ahead. Yeah. I hate that idea. But
all right, well, you tell us what you do. You go to a kitchen. What do you do?
No, I think that Mike's exactly right, though. So in some cases, depending on what the quality of the unit is, or depending on the class of the unit, it might make only sense to paint them.
I got to tell you, at least maybe it's a California thing. A lot of the boxes of the units I buy are solid.
Yeah, they're custom made.
Certainly better than I could buy today off the shelf. So that's why I'm usually replacing doors, painting, and moving on. So
curious, Mike. So, and not to put you on the spot, but in a typical kitchen, what are you spending to paint, redo doors and handles? and hinges.
Well, I've never seen a breakdown of just that, but I would guess that's probably 2,200 to 26, I would guess.
Yep.
Somewhere in
And
there.
so I, because I'm broken, opened
Yeah,
up
yeah.
a cabinet franchise so I can wholesale to the public.
I
So the
remember.
people in my lumberjack course, they actually get to buy wholesale cabinets. And so I'm doing kitchens for $3,000.
Okay. When you
Brand
say
new
a kitchen,
boxes. So
okay.
boxes. So all the uppers, all the lowers. We have a special design that I did, which actually saves $1,600 in a normal kitchen, which is a butcher block countertop and a farmer's sink. It's a different look than all of your competition is going to have, and it looks more expensive. It saves you $1,600.
All right.
And so those are the kitchens that we put in. So I do kitchens for $5,000, and no company you walk into and you're going to get a quote for 10 to 12 or $15,000.
Yeah, I think kitchens in my apartments are 7,500 to $8,000,
Yep.
and they're
Yeah.
not
We can
single
do,
family kitchens.
yeah, we can do them for, and we can do them for 5, because
Yeah.
we're doing the cabinets of wholesale. And these are solid wood cabinets.
Okay.
They're high quality. They're slow closed doors, slow closed drawers. They are not cheap. To give you an idea, these are the same cabinets that I put in a $800,000 house I did.
Okay.
For me.
I like it.
I love the cabinets. They're awesome.
And I guess the only other things to talk about are the outside. I don't know what for me in California, landscaping, fencing. Fences are a big deal out here. They, the sun beats them up.
Yep.
What do you got out there?
So fences, usually you can find, the big thing is calling dig safe. I don't know what the version of that is where you guys, but if you call dig safe and you see there's no lines and it's a pretty easy thing, then you can easily hire just like a labor crew, and they can measure out 8 feet between. And then you're looking at about 130 a panel for your typical PVC. I like the PVC stuff because it'll last forever. But the PVC in the sleeve, if you figure about $200 for every 8 feet, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And then you just figure, because that's going to count your 2x4 or your 4x4, excuse me. That'll count your 4x4. That'll count the panel. That'll count the cement that you need after you auger the ground and pour it. So if you figure about $200 for every 8 feet, and then just figure out what labor is, usually guys that do that stuff, they can do 8, 10, 12 panels in a day. Pretty straightforward. Okay. Yeah. Right. If it's a crew of 3.
Very, very cool. Again, folks, you're going to get to ask questions. We're right around the corner from this. Gina's going to be first. She's the only one with her hand up. Come on.
Ksenia open, raise their hand, so I'm ready to answer their question as well.
All right, very cool, very cool. But any other thoughts as we wrap this up? You're the hands-on guy.
Yeah.
Any things we've missed before we get to the question?
It really comes down to understanding what some of the things should cost, understanding what your market is, having processes in place. Mike's buy box is brilliant. And when you couple that with my rent box on top of that, it guarantees that you won't do a bad deal. If you do buy box and rent box, you won't do a bad deal. That's how powerful those 2 ideas are. But yeah, when it comes to managing your property, I think it's really important because, Mike does that job of getting people to take the plunge and buy something. The key is that you're going to own that asset for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Yeah. So if you manage it like I manage my assets, they actually go up, your rents go up, you stay in front of the market. Those processes become critical to making sure that you're optimizing your portfolio, because it's a whole lot easier 10 years in to have done half as many projects, but get twice as much yield or return on capital out of them than it is to have to buy twice as much and not manage them properly. And then where are you? You're likely at that point, if you have to sell something, you're going to have to sell something and take a hit for the projects that you didn't do because you weren't charging enough rent. So really my process lends itself very well to sustainability and growth. And so I have stuff that I've owned for 10 and 15 years now that, most of my early stuff is gone, but the stuff that I've owned for 10 or 15 years now, I make twice what the mortgage is on it. Mm-hmm. You can't make up for longevity. And so a lot of people that have looked good in the last 3 years that aren't going to look good in the next 3, So the idea is you really have to build a sustainability in your portfolio. And the way that you do that is by managing and controlling costs.
Well, again, you've heard me say this, but we'll say it for the audience that's seeing this for the first time. The good operators are going to be the winners, right? The financial engineers, the people that got lucky on timing, they're all going to get hurt.
Yep.
Some of them are going to go to jail. So
true.
that's where we are. Well, we're going to get to Q&A now. Thank you for being patient, folks. Gina, on my screen, you are the first hand raised, and Senya, you'll be next. But Gina, go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone.
Hi, Gina.
Hello. I question about the 203K loans that you were
Sure.
talking about. So can you have an FHA loan? So if I'm house hacking duplex, I had an FHA loan. I've lived there for 2 years, 3 years, and now I want to acquire another property. Can you have a 203K loan with an FHA loan at the same time?
So you can. So FHA, it can be, it's an FHA program. So it's FHA 203K. What I would probably do, Gina, is if you're living in your place now and you've got like a 3 rate, 3.5, 4, something like that, some great rate on the place you're living in now, I wouldn't give that up. I'd be looking at the conventional version of that 203K. And when you talk to any mortgage broker, any bank, they'll say, hey, yeah, we have a construction option or we have a rehab option. And use that in conjunction. And that's basically getting a conventional loan set up like that. I wouldn't be giving up anything that I financed in the last 2 or 3 years. Wouldn't be giving up any of that stuff. I wouldn't want to keep that because that keeps the debt, the long-term really cheap. So that's your best bet in my eyes.
Yep. Okay. So you can keep the FHA property and then get another, but conventional 203K.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I would, Mike has a great guest with Matt, the mortgage guy. He's a great guest. And so Matt, I brought Matt a number of clients and just said, he's like, they're not my state, but we have a U mortgage presence somewhere else. And then he's linked them up. And most importantly is they manage and operate the same way. So I've enjoyed all the work that I've done with his crew. They've been great.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Gina, any follow-up? You're good to go.
I'm good to go. Thanks.
Awesome. Very cool. Senya, you're up.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Matt, thank you so much for coming by to share your knowledge with us.
Sure.
So I have a question, 2 questions actually.
Sure.
First one, every real estate agent I speak to tells me that during the sessions, right, homeowners lose their homes and create a larger tenant pool, which makes sense, right? So I just wanted to hear your take on it, especially that you shared with us like a little different experience, right? When you actually lost paying tenants during 2008 crisis. So just wanted to hear your take. Why is there such a disconnect?
I would venture to say, as kindly as I can say it, those agents probably don't own any investment property and they're only speaking on feelings. They didn't actually experience it. They don't actually know. What ended up happening in 2008 was rents in some areas did go up because people were losing their homes. They were leaving their homes. Any realtor that believes that now hasn't worked with a bank on a high enough level where they understand how banks operate. Banks do not want to take back those homes. Banks absolutely do. They are going to be doing workouts, 40-year mortgages. They have a number of other options that they can do for folks. Last time they recognized that was the biggest issue that they had was taking these things back, because they would take something back that was $250,000 was owed on it, and they were getting $120,000 when they sold it. And so the bank was having to write down 130 grand. That's why all the banks got in so much trouble. And so this time around, there's going to be people that it's going to be posted on auction sites. It's going to be saying it's in default and going into foreclosure. They're working things out with them. It's just like when you post papers on a tenant, you're still trying to work with them to get something resolved. And some of them end up in eviction. Some of them end up with them leaving. So I think you're still going to see foreclosures. I think you'll still see, I don't think you'll see any short sales, because everybody that owns anything, it's worth a lot more than what they paid for it. So I think largely speaking, realtors give out fairly bad advice that aren't investors. If they're an investor, then there might be some nuance to that market. but a majority of them, 93% or 95% of agents don't own any investment property. And about 30% of agents don't even own a home.
Mhm.
Like,
Interesting.
you should never take diet advice from me. And you should never take advice like that from a renter when they don't understand how all the inner workings work.
Mhm.
Does that help?
So, yes, for sure.
Awesome.
So, a better way to, I guess, protect yourself against, recession when
Sure.
and if it may come, would be Section 8 housing, right?
So I
Would
think
you say?
diversification in that way is important. I think that I like Section 8 housing for what it is. But the challenge that you have with Section 8 housing is, and these are just my numbers, but they're factual. I have an 800% higher likelihood of getting a maintenance call from a Section 8 unit than I do from a regular unit. 8x. Costs me more to manage those units. And the funny thing is, they pay less than the market does. So I think it's important to have a percentage of them, but the better percentages, the percentages I like more are students. I like student housing more than I like Section 8 because they get their school loans and their school loans cover housing. I like fixed income better than that. I like military better than Section 8 because you can call an XO who's basically the commanding officer or the senior officer in charge. And for any of you who are armed forces, I apologize. I don't know exact definition, but you can actually report them as not having paid their rent and they know that. So they're going to stay up on it. The other piece too is that if somebody has a 720 or a 750 credit score, they are far more likely to pay because they can't afford to lose that 720 or that 750 credit because that's their ability to borrow. That's their ability to buy. And so people really start to protect that. And if they go into it with a 620 anyway, then they have no problem being a 520 or a 480. You know, they've been there. If they're at 620, they've been at 580 before or 520 or 480. I literally saw a credit score this week of 392.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that's possible.
I actually asked the person, I said, so I have to ask, do you get like an allergic reaction when you go to pay your bills?
392.
It's a 392. Like, you know, we should probably have Bill Narcan standing by. Like, it's absurd. And I said, how could I ever consider you? She's like, well, you know, I've been going through some things. I was like, that's fine, but you're going to have to continue to go through those things. That's not on me to take on. And all of her stuff was still actively in collections.
Right.
I'm like, yeah,
let me ask you a question about Section 8 because you've only been doing Section 8 for
3 years.
Comparison's sake,
Yep,
shorter
3
than
years.
me.
Yeah, way shorter. Yeah.
How have you seen turnover? Have you seen turnover for Section 8 be less than cash payers? Or is it too soon to tell?
It's well, so in the 3 years, the Section 8 people that we've wanted to get rid of, we've gotten rid of them.
Okay.
Which has been it's been about 20%. It's been about 20% of the Section 8 tenants that we've gotten. We're like, no, we're not renewing. And we knew that pretty quickly. And in fact, 2 or 3 times we've actually asked them to leave early. We're just like, hey, this isn't working out. We've called the housing authority. We're just like, this isn't working out. This isn't going to work out long term.
Right.
And so from a market perspective, the thing that's where we instituted a lot of the evictions that we've done were not tenants that we picked. They were tenants we inherited.
You inherited. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What I would tell you about Section 8, having had Section 8 tenants for 22 years now, once they're in houses, they almost never leave. My experience. I'm talking 8, 9, 10 years. Section 8 in apartments, a little bit more turnover, right? Because their goal, not speaking for them, but based on experiences, they want to go from the apartment to the house. Once Section 8's in house, my experience, they stay for, seemingly a long time.
Yeah. I think we've seen it range. We've had like I said, it's just a higher hit rate of issues.
Okay.
It's just been for us. And so I didn't have a handyman. I did almost all my own stuff. And now I have to have one because they also are the first ones to call code enforcement. They're the first ones to call housing. And it's not on big issues. We got them calling, well, a piece of my backsplash fell off. Okay. Like no one died and no one's at risk of death. A piece of backsplash fell off.
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. Gotcha. Senya, do you have a follow-up question?
I have another question. Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Should be quick.
Mhm.
How do you find real estate wholesalers? Like I did a little search online and I didn't find much. Maybe I didn't.
Yeah. So I would look at, so great question. So we, for me, it is, I talk to everybody. So I talk to new agents all the time. I'm just like, oh, hey, do you know any wholesalers? I also get those, cards in the mail where they're trying to buy my properties. And there are tons of those, and those are almost all wholesalers. So the cards in the mail that you get, you can also talk to other landlords and landlord groups. They've likely bought from other wholesalers. You can also, because a lot of them aren't big enough businesses, they're like smaller guys who wholesale. And so you can look up on Facebook. That's what I've done. Facebook groups. There's actual wholesale Facebook groups. And you're like, hey, I'm looking for wholesalers in this area.
Yeah.
So you can do that. That's what I've done, all of those things, and I've got probably 8 or 10.
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to find wholesalers. And again, your job will be vetting the good ones versus the bad ones, because it's easy to call yourself a wholesaler, Senya. So
Yeah,
I would do the
it is.
Facebook thing. I would also, where I think you get a lot more traction is a local RIA, real estate meetup.
Yep.
Usually at those meetups, they'll, at the beginning or the end, usually the beginning, they'll say, anybody looking for anything? I would just stand up and saying, hey, I'm a new investor. Here's my buy box. I'm looking to meet 3 new wholesalers today. Hopefully they're in the room, and I think you'd be swarmed.
Yeah. Yep. They're not hard to find, right? Especially right now. The challenge is that it's not to believe that every wholesaler that brings you a deal is a good deal.
Oh yeah.
There's plenty of bad deals in those wholesale buckets. I have this one owner around us that has put his deals under contract 9 times in the last 2 years with 9 different wholesalers.
Yeah. They can't sell. Yeah.
They can't sell because what they're asking is for way too much.
Yeah. Very cool. You good, Senya?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Very cool. Karen C, you're up next. And what we'll do, folks, is we'll do 3 questions max. And then if you want to ask some more, we'll just go to the back of the line so everybody gets the same love. So 3 questions each. Karen?
Hey, Matt, I have 2 questions for you. One is, you said core doors, but was there any type of specific door? I missed that.
So just solid core. So it doesn't matter whatever design you like to pick. We like something called a Craftsman 3. It's a very timeless look. It's very classic. Here in New England, you can walk into an old home, you can find a door that looks just like it, whether it's a 120-year-old door or a new door. So we like solid core because that means that it's not hollow. That means it's full wood throughout, and it usually has some sort of a masonite finish, which is easy to paint. But we like the Craftsman 3 style, and that's what we deploy. So we deploy solid core Craftsman 3s throughout our properties.
Okay. My second question, and I asked Dion this last week as well, is what do you use to run someone's credit?
So for us, I don't run credit. I actually have them send me a screenshot of their Credit Karma.
Okay.
So I get 200 to 300%. This is one of the things I teach in my course is I get 200 to 300% more opportunities to rent my units than most landlords because of how I write my ads, but also the criteria and barrier of entry that I create for them. I'm not trying to get them to pay me $50 for an application to talk to me, And so I get kind of a couple criteria up front, which is I want a screenshot of your credit score and I want a screenshot of your last paycheck.
Can I ask what your credit limit is?
650.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
650. That's lower than I would have guessed.
I bumped it down only because we have in one of the towns that we do, they are about 61% renters in that town. And so the challenge that they have is that they've never had a mortgage payment that gets reported. So the only thing that they have is consumer debt and cars.
Right.
And because of where we're headed, everybody's tightening up on how they're grading and scoring DTI. And so everyone's getting worse scores.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Just due to debt load, because they haven't adjusted for how much debt load everyone's carrying.
All right. Very cool. Karen, was that your 2 questions? Yep. Awesome. Amy, you're up.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Sure.
So I started house hacking, my first house ever last year. And so I rent out the extra bedrooms in my unit. So it's just a condo.
Mhm.
And then my roommate is moving out next month. So it's going to be my first turnover.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you can walk through like the steps of turning over like a room. I'm currently finding roommates, and I mainly use Facebook, like on Marketplace, and then all
Love
the
it.
various like Facebook groups.
Love it.
And then my friend, I asked to put it on their company Slack channel. So I am in the process of finding a roommate. But besides that, I was wondering, yeah, if you could walk through like the steps of yeah, how to process them to move out. I like when they moved in, I had them like mark up like a move-in checklist to like prove like everything's working properly. So I was gonna have her fill that out, but I
Yep.
wasn't sure if she fills that out like the day she moves out or
She does.
like when the day
Yep.
she moves out. Okay.
Day she moves out. That way, if she whacks a wall with a mattress, box spring, frame, and she puts a dent in there, and you got to fix it. That way, you cover it. So it's the only time that that can happen is you have to do it after they've got everything out. Once you get everything out, then we go through the list and walk through it again. That way, there's no debate.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
What I would do too is just as a
mhm.
like a psychological thing, I would have it on a clipboard, and I would have the original one she filled out underneath the new one.
Oh yeah. I have the original one. Yeah. That was gonna show to her.
I would just put it right
And
there on the clipboard behind it. That way you can always flip it up and reference it.
right, yeah. And so when I was like doing showings, I noticed that her like she punched some holes in the wall for like earthquake proofing her furnitures, which is totally fine. But so that's one thing that I'm like, okay, that I need to fix when she moves out. So I wasn't sure if that's something easy enough for me to do, or I should have a handyman do it for me. And also like if that's something that I could deduct from her deductible.
Yes, and yes. So yes, it's easy enough for you to do. You can absolutely Google it because it's probably just holes in sheetrock, right?
Yeah, probably.
Just holes in sheetrock.
I think.
Yeah,
So it's a
sheetrock,
wall, right? There's a
it's
wall.
Yeah.
It's a wall covering. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's just sheetrock. So
Sheetrock, yeah.
you can definitely.
And is it like this big, like 2 inches by 2 inches?
No, it's just like a screwdriver.
Oh, so it's just
like
oh yeah, that's
hole.
really
Yeah.
easy. Even I
super
can do that.
easy. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you can, there's a million videos online, super easy repair. They call it 40-minute mud. You can walk right into Home Depot and you can buy 40-minute mud. You can buy it pre-mixed. So then it's really just about taking a spatula, and then you can look online to see techniques of, how you pull it out and slather on the wall and how big the slather should be. And you can absolutely do that stuff. It's not a problem. And then the only thing that I would do there is if you're going to, in entering into any roommate contract or anything like that, what I find is easiest that way. If you go to court and the judge says, yeah, but you did the work. Well, yeah, but I charge $35 an hour for my time. The judge can go, there's nowhere contracted that you can charge that. And so you typically should have that in the roommate agreement that says, hey, anything that I can repair, I will repair at this rate plus materials.
Okay, so I should let her know that this month before she moves out if I do decide to do it myself. Like,
well, either way, you can say, it's gonna save. So you wouldn't be able to double dip. So as an example, if you do the job and you hate the job you did, you can't charge her for that and charge her for the person that comes in behind to do a good job.
Matt, quick question.
Good.
The other thing she could do is it could be up to the tenant to repair, right? She could say, hey, I've noticed that you earthquaked your dresser or TV or whatever. Do you plan to repair that before you leave? Because as you know, when you moved in, that hole didn't exist. So not knowing the tenant's capabilities, it's possible that the tenant could repair that as well.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that's one of the things that I used to have read in my lease, which was you need to have something professionally repaired. you know,
Mhm.
and so that way they're not like, well, I went around and I filled all that stuff. And you're like, it looks awful. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Of
Mhm.
course you're going to have to pay to do that the right way. So, you know, I obviously, you know, having contractors that were friends of mine that live with me, I wasn't a stickler about it. I was just like, no, I mean, you're a contractor. I'm not going to make you to have somebody else do it. Like you can do it, but I expect the
Good
job
work.
I saw 3 weeks ago, not the one I saw 3 months ago, you know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
quality of work, but yeah, that's what I would do. I would just let her know, hey, you know, you're more than welcome to, you know, get somebody to do that. However, if I do it, I'm, you know, just going
Right.
to, you know, again, that's where I have that in the roommate agreement.
Mhm.
So they
Mhm.
know what the cost is going to be up front. Now, if you don't have that in the roommate agreement,
Mhm.
it'd be tough to sue them and get recovery. You know, that in that particular case, you'd actually have to hire somebody to do the
Mhm.
work to then give her the invoice to say it was done by a pro. So if you add that piece about, you know, I have the right to repair at, you know, and at $30 an hour or something like that, you just have to have the roommate agreement before somebody signs. Can't do it after
Okay.
the fact.
Yeah, yeah, because that wasn't in our
I didn't
lease
think so. It's
agreement.
But
not,
next time. Next
it's
time.
not in most. I'm saying next time it's a good thing to
Mhm.
have in there. You know,
Okay, so I should, if I could, I should try to do it myself and just let her know or ask her if she wants to
Yeah, I think
fix it.
Amy, the first step is to ask her if she intends to
Yeah.
repair those before she leaves, to
Great.
pay someone to repair them.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Unless she's a contractor, because maybe she's planning to pay it, or maybe she doesn't even know.
Yeah.
But you know, those holes didn't exist. So sometimes it's just communication.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, I'll point it out to her and see if she can fix it, and if not, I'll just tell her
Yeah.
like how much it would be to fix it
Yeah.
if I did it myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we have a pretty good relationship, so I don't
Yeah.
think there's going to be any contentious
Yeah,
situation.
you've got to
for
put
that.
it back to the condition it was when she moved in. Those holes didn't exist. The
Mhm,
next person has a choice. I mean, it should be a
mhm,
reasonable conversation.
yeah.
Agreed.
And so, yeah, okay, thank you for answering that. And then
Sure.
besides that, is there any other steps in the move out process that I should do in any order, besides those things?
I don't think so. I think really the big thing is, you know, making sure that there's agreement of what the unit needs to be essentially for, you know, her to get her deposit back. Where are you located? What state?
In California, in
Okay.
the Bay Area, so
Okay.
near
So I don't
Mike.
know what the rules are as far as deposit returns.
Mhm.
Mike, what are those? I don't,
Well, I
think
think
I
you have
have
up.
30 days.
Yeah, no,
Mhm,
I think
yeah.
yeah, but you know, going, it's a friend, it's a roommate, you know, assuming she's working with you. I mean, I'm not opposed to giving it up. Yeah, certainly if it was a roommate situation, having the money available that day
Yep.
or next day.
Yep.
But yeah, I think you have 30 days.
Yeah. The only reason I ask is
Mhm.
because if you hire somebody to do that work, you can't just give the
Right.
security deposit back until after the work is done and you have an invoice.
Correct.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
just make sure that that's being done in a timely manner because that as soon as it goes over 30 days, it's triple damages.
Yeah,
So
not good.
Oh, okay.
yeah. And it's not triple damages on the, it can be on the entire deposit. So if you don't return that entire deposit within
Mhm.
30 days, they can take you to court and it's open and shut. They're just like, I didn't get my
Oh,
deposit. It
mhm.
wasn't postmarked within 30 days of my moving out.
Wait, I have to pay them 3 times the deposit? Is that
Yep.
what you mean? Oh.
Well, triple.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Treble
you didn't
damages.
return it. Yeah,
If you didn't
triple.
return it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If you didn't
Okay.
return it. That's where a lot of new landlords got there because they don't know that rule. And so they're just like,
Mhm,
well, I was waiting on somebody's bill or I was waiting on this. You
mhm,
have to make sure that it
mhm,
goes out within 30 days and then it's an itemized list of everything that you did and the cost associated with it.
mhm.
Yeah, anything
Okay.
that you deduct, make sure there's a line item.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Last question. So,
Sure.
I was thinking of deep cleaning the carpet after she moves out. So,
Mhm.
would that be considered like a wear and tear, or should I also deduct that from the deposit?
Did you do that before she moved in?
Well, it was brand new carpets, so not really, but it was brand new carpet.
Yeah.
How long has she lived there?
A year and a half, like a year and yeah, almost a year and a half.
Yeah. I don't know, Matt. What do you think?
I would have it cleaned. I would have it cleaned and charge.
I would
Her.
have it cleaned and probably not charged, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's, you got to be really careful as a landlord,
Mhm,
in my opinion, right? There's just normal wear and tear. They've paid you rent for 18 months. You
mhm.
know they're going to be walking on your carpet.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like they broke the rules and had a dog or a cat or a rabbit
right.
living in there. That's a
Uh-huh.
totally different situation.
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as a dirty carpet and wanting to make it look good for the next tenant, I would absolutely deep clean it. But unless there was something like I don't know, kept food under a bed or something crazy,
Yeah.
I would not charge for the deep
I'd-
clean personally.
I'd put that in your roommate agreement that hey, when you're getting it perfectly cleaned and professionally cleaned, when you
there
leave,
go.
I need you to
Okay.
professionally clean it.
There you
So
go.
that's the same thing we do in ours. So the few units that we have that have carpet, we basically say, hey, we had it professionally cleaned before you moved in. So when you leave, we need a receipt of it being professionally cleaned.
Okay.
We've had
Yeah.
somebody trying to give us a receipt for a company that didn't exist.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was
that
like-
would be difficult for me to
Yeah.
handle that.
Yeah.
Okay. Since I think probably for the carpet cleaning, I will not charge her. I'm kind of on Team Mike for this one, but if I like in the next agreement, maybe I could put it like how Matt put it. So it's like the expectations already set.
Yeah. Look at the profit. Right. So to get that properly cleaned, it's gonna be $150.
Yeah, it's a small room, probably.
Yeah. But if you have a company come do it, they have minimum charges. So my guys, no matter what, they're showing up, boom, $150, and then it goes up from there based on size.
Right.
So if you do that, over the course of every single time somebody moves out and you figure what your percentages and what your returns are,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
probably a pretty big return. So I would just have it in their agreement that when you move in, here's what it is. It's professionally cleaned. The carpets have been professionally cleaned. The walls have no defects. The doors have no defects. And, it's your responsibility when you move out that all of these things are basically redone again.
I like that.
Okay. Yeah. Cause that was at my apartment that I moved out of. That was how they did it. So that's why I was like thinking of that. But okay. Thank you. Thank you both.
You're very
Very
welcome.
cool. No problem. Van Reeth, you're up.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having this meeting.
Happy to.
Yeah, I like the shirt too.
Oh, thank you. It's that season. The uniform is in. Way it
Yeah,
goes.
in
It's
Southern
flannel
California,
for the next 6 months.
It's still 80 in Southern California, so
Oh my God.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it's flannel weather. It never happens really.
Never happens there. That's true.
No. So I had a question, a couple questions here. What are you looking for in like a location when you're picking out your what to buy, and kind of explain what no one really has a definition. I guess it's a squishy definition of ABC locations,
Yeah,
because
sure.
it kind of depends on the market. Can you describe what
Very much.
your market, and maybe Zuber can talk about his too?
Yeah, very much. So the markets that I'm looking for are ones that are, so for me, so Mike's strategy works awesome. Single family homes. Usually what you'll find is that will work in, and this is not a political statement. This is fact. You can look up the numbers. Single family homes largely work in blue governed states.
Okay.
Small multifamilies work awesome. And usually they're built more in red governed states, not red state, blue state, but look at the governor and look at the longevity of the governor, because usually it's the difference between a lot of programs and fewer programs, and then how they divvy up the tax base. So in New Hampshire, my government is very aligned with me because they get a majority of their income from property taxes. So single family homes in my area do not cash flow. They haven't in a very long time. And it's because they have a very high cost tax basis. And so for me, my state is pro landlord, not pro tenant. And I prefer that as a landlord. So I had my choice to invest in Massachusetts, Maine, or New Hampshire. They're all about 17 miles apart. And so I chose New Hampshire because that was where I was from. But what I liked much more about it was the court process was much, much faster. Like in Massachusetts, you can go 5 months in the wintertime. If it's a mom with kids, you can't evict them. I'm not looking to evict a mom with kids, but I also can't afford to pay 5 months of their rent because they're never going to recover from that. So for me, political climate has a little bit of something to do with it. And I don't care how they vote nationally. Don't give two rips. I only care about how they vote state-wise from a governing perspective, because in red states, taxes are usually higher, So like Florida property taxes are higher, and Texas property taxes are higher, and New Hampshire property taxes are higher. But the government is far more aligned with a landlord than they are with a tenant. They need that tax base. And if they know if I'm not getting rent, I can't afford my taxes.
Yeah. You want to talk about A, B, and C for you?
Sure. A to me is brand new ground up. Well, so as I'm comparing it to how I feel about it versus the market A is usually brand new build. Yeah. For me, the market isn't, I want to do so an A quality area is going to be brand new build and brand new. For me, I try to do B and C areas with A, B, and C product, because everybody that just goes in and they're a one-trick pony and all they do is gut and rehab. The problem that you're going to have is that you're getting rid of, I believe in feeder systems and farm systems, like in baseball, where I have a unit that's clean and safe, and that's likely where a tenant's going to start. The next step up for them is clean, safe, and upgraded. i.e., I've done some upgrades. I've, maybe done a light setup. We've done a bunch of electrical. We've got newer appliances, things like that. So kind of clean, safe, and upgraded. And then the next step up for me is basically clean, safe, and updated. Meaning I've done a kitchen, I've done floors, I've done, my kitchen setup. That's what that market is for me. And so I have tenants that have been with me that have just worked through my quality of products. They started out as, I just need clean and safe. And then they went to clean, safe, and updated, or clean, safe, and upgraded. And then they went to clean, safe, and updated. And so when I say updated, that's not a new build, but it's pretty damn close. It's gutted. It's down to wall, down to studs. It's new electrical. It's, new plumbing. It's new fixtures. I mean, it basically doubles as a brand new build. It's just not a brand new build.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, generally speaking, when people talk about A, B, and C areas, it's generally age.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking, sub 5 years is your A areas, because that's the only stuff that really can pencil for developers. B is kind of 20 years to 5 years. And generally speaking, C is greater than 20 years. Now in California, that might be a little bit longer, given we don't have the same weather conditions as some states. But generally it is kind of age of building and infrastructure. In my area, even in Fresno, Central Valley, A areas have never cash flowed. Just not even close. I think I bought one property during the collapse that was, generally speaking, an A area, but that was, luck really. B and C areas is where the most of the cash flow is. Some things that I look for that maybe a lot of people don't is I still drive my properties.
Yeah.
When I'm driving a new area that I don't know if it's A or B, one of the things that I look for is grass. How many of the yards have green grass or relatively green grass versus how many have been watered so long it's basically dirt? Because one of the things that generically tells me, and it's not always the case, but generally tells me the percentage of renters versus owners. Generally speaking, owners take more care because it's theirs, generally speaking. But that is something I look for. I would call a C area something I drove through where the properties are 50 years old and it's basically dirt lots. Like there's not a lick of grass on the entire street. You probably have cars parked up on jacks. These are just things that come together when I'm driving down the street. But that doesn't mean I don't invest there. That just means I know what I'm getting into. And to Matt's point, it really controls what I upgrade.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think A, B, and C get a lot of talk about because they are squishy, to kind of use your word.
They are.
But it's, to me, it's age. I mean, you could have like for example, you're in Long Beach. Do I remember that right, Ben Reed?
Yeah.
So there really isn't a lot of new development in Long Beach. Maybe there's a couple of infill lots, a couple of things going on. But Long Beach is such a pricey area. There's probably homes that were built 100 years ago that look brand new.
Yeah, right? I've lived in one of those.
Exactly, right? So it's really hard to say. But generally speaking, A, B, and C makes a lot more sense on apartments.
Okay.
That's where A,
Yeah.
B, and C comes in. It's
It does.
apartments, it's amenities, right? A class A has a pool, a gym, laundry facilities. A B will have one pool versus two pools. It'll have this, that, the other. A, B, and C got their names because of apartments. We as real estate investors try to bring that to single family. It's not really the same, hence squishy.
Okay.
Yeah. Clean. The idea is at a base, you want clean and safe.
Yes,
Yeah.
always.
And then
Yeah,
clean,
yeah.
safe, and updated, and then clean, safe, and upgraded, really is the spectrum.
Very, very cool. Do you have
So-
another one, Vinreath? Okay.
Yeah. Going along with that, how do you know when a place becomes swings from unsafe to safe, or vice versa? Like, how do you know when the neighborhood kind of turns?
Yeah. I mean, you can I think so I've bought in a good economy, something that went from a D to a C and then to a B minus, and then the economy went bad and it went back to D hard. So I think that the challenge is, as you see, you don't want to be first on that list, because usually the people that are first on that list, it's either getting lucky or it's a big developer who's making a massive investment in a certain area because they have enough swag to pull it off. And so for me, as far as looking at an area going from, C, B, and D, is I look at the town next door, and then that stuff starts to creep in. If the town next door is really blowing up and they're, really doing a ton of build and a ton of new product, I know that it's going to push people out of that area into the next town. And so I've started early in some of these other towns. There's a town right now that I started buying in 13 years ago. I was buying single family houses for 60 grand. The cheapest one for sale in the market now is 250. But that 250 one doesn't cash flow anymore. But the duplexes there, I used to buy for 120, 130. Now they're 350, 400. So what you really start to look for is the town that you're already doing business in, are they just doing a bunch of new development? Is that what that continues to be? That's how I've done it in the past. I don't know that it's very scientific, but Mike probably has a better answer for scientific.
One of the things that I look for when I drive around areas to see if they are improving or not improving is what's going on with the commercial segment, right? Are stores opening? Are they closing?
Yeah.
Are we getting name brand stores versus one shop stores? Generally speaking, if a Starbucks goes in, or a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A or any of these other kind of name brands into a new spot, that's a sign, right? They have all these data scientists running around doing all these things. So when I'm trying to figure out an area, I first start with the commercial segment. Are they opening or closing? Second, when you're starting to get into big neighborhoods, right, there's not really a commercial artery. How many dumpsters? Right? That tells me if it's increasing. And I've been a part of some segments in Fresno where, for whatever reason, 2 or 3 flippers went in, then 5 or 6 followed, and the entire neighborhood's different.
Yeah.
That was about a 4 or 5 year journey. That was fun to see and be a part of. Dumpsters will tell you. And then with their going the other direction, getting worse, I watch the cars. Do the cars go from Mercedes to something less than that? Do the cars suddenly not have, 4 hubcaps? Right? Are we seeing cars on blocks? I mean, you can see like, just watch the cars. Are the cars getting better or worse? Because that'll tell you what's going on in the household dynamics. There are signs.
I also drive later. I'll drive
at night.
Drive
Yeah.
10, 11 o'clock at night. Make one night where you drive it at midnight or 1 a.m. If you see activity at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
and more than one house, that's going to start to get dicey in all likelihood.
Okay. Yeah, those are all good points to kind of assess what's happening.
Awesome.
So what one last question.
Sure.
What's the for kind of both of your students, like what's the light bulb moment for them that it kind of clicks, like whatever situation they're in? So I currently don't have any rentals, but like it's kind of like this big hurdle, this mountain. Like it's probably pretty small compared to other people, but I'm like, it's just the hurdle is like it's hard to get get everything kind of in motion, and then also get the mindset right. And then if you have setbacks and such, like
Yep.
what's that light bulb moment?
I hope the first light bulb moment, because again, my job is to take you from the stands to the field. So we'll let Matt go next.
I'll be back in 1 second. Keep going.
Yep. I think the answer is when you write your first great offer, not when you get your first deal. When you can confidently put pen to paper and know with certainty that this is going to produce X yield, which is more than average by a significant amount, I want to shake your hand. Even if it's 30% less than list price, you have done something. So yes, I send cards out when you get your first deal and when you get your next deal. But if I had a way to send out cards when you write your first great offer, I think that needs to be celebrated. So that is the light bulb moment I'm chasing. When a student goes, in your case, I've been looking in Long Beach. I've been doing this 103 days. I saw this property on Main Street. It's a little bit listed more, but I think there's a fourth bedroom and it's not really a 3. I'm going to write an offer that's 19% below list price. And you don't care if you get a yes answer, you won.
Yep.
That's the light bulb moment I'm chasing, and I hope all of you get to. I can't promise a deal. I cannot promise that sellers will sell at a price that produces a great yield. But if I can get you to the point where you confidently write an offer you feel great about, I did my job. That's the light bulb moment I chase.
Yeah, I think for me is, in my course, I've got people kind of in your position where they have 0, and I have people all the way up to 60 and 70 units. And so it's been powerful for me is seeing that across the spectrum, it's just how much more you can learn. And I think the thing that scares anybody is fear of the unknown, right? You have no idea what's going to happen when you become a landlord. And so Mike takes a lot of the guessing out of how to write the offer, how to shop for a good deal. It was really funny. Mike and I were talking about it one day, and he's like, this is what's great about the course. He's like, I teach people how to find a good deal. I said, see, it's not it for me at all. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, it keeps me from making a bad deal. Yeah. I don't want to make a good deal. I just don't want to make a bad deal. If I make a bad deal, I'm going to get stuck. And so for me, what's most fun for my students is completely demystifying all these things out there that 90% of people don't even know. You're instantly, I have beyond a shadow of a doubt in my course, it is 9.5 hours of recorded teachings. If you're in a boot camp, it's another 28 hours. If you don't know infinitely more than anybody else you're talking to after that, because you're getting literally 22 years of experience, 100 flips that I touched myself, that I've managed myself, that I've had the interaction with my tenants, I've had the interaction with housing, I've had the interaction with contractors, I've had the interaction with the stupid tub that I could not get out of a damn unit. I've had all of those interactions. And so that's where the key comes in, is it's like everybody gets nervous because it's the fear of the unknown. They don't have no idea what they're going to run into or how a tenant's going to handle this. That's what we do, is we kind of demystify all that, because we say, hey, when a tenant writes you a nasty gram, here's how you respond. When a tenant, does this, or when a contractor does that, or when the city calls, here's how you respond to that. And it's really giving people examples and real life examples where you can then deal with that. Now it's not unknown anymore. You're like, oh man, this is awesome. There was actually a part in the boot camp where Matt covered that for an hour. I'm going to go rewatch that before I respond. It's that type of stuff. So really the light bulb moment for me is when people realize this really isn't as tough as it is. What I need to do is I need to game up on as much experience as I can get. And right now, short of going through it yourself, the most important thing you can have is educating yourself as to what it might look like. And so that's what's the light bulb moment for a lot of the students that are in my class, is they're just like, I literally had this wonderful lady. In fact, she watches Mike as well. Anna Kay. She's late 50s, has one rental. And she's just like, because of the course, I feel bold. I don't get scared when my phone rings anymore from my PM. And she also can hold them accountable. She said there was one example where I think she said she saved like $800 or something because she was able to challenge them on something. That's what's worth its weight to me, because 85% or 90% of real estate agents are completely useless. It's the same for PMs. 80 to 90% of them are complete garbage, and they're just looking to fee the heck out of you. And at the end of the day, when you can look at a spreadsheet and go, they made more for my properties than I did this year, that's a problem. So that's what's most exciting for me with my students, is that they get through it and they're just like, I don't feel afraid for the phone to ring anymore. It can ring and I'm going to have an answer.
You good,
Yeah,
Fenry?
Yeah, it's good. I'm excited and a little bit fearful, but that's kind of
I
like,
get it.
yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's okay.
Believe it or not, I used to be non-confrontational.
That's funny.
It's a true story.
There you go. All right.
Thank you.
It looks
Welcome.
like Adam jumped ahead of John, but I think John was next. So we'll go to John next and Adam after that. John, you're up. Oh,
If John's there, I think he was waiting for us. So maybe
John. Oh, we'll go to Adam then. Adam C.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Ken.
Again, there he is.
Sorry. All right.
Sorry.
Sorry. Alrighty.
good.
So I have a couple questions.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to specifically get into like a live work property, like a apartment above, but I'm looking at older buildings. I think I'd asked this last time I was in here. But what are the specific things you would look for if you're looking for a building around
So
or
like
a
true
little
mixed
older?
use? True mixed
Yeah,
use,
true
like-
mixed use, but I'm going to
Okay.
do it like kind of the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
way people house hack. I have a
Yep.
business and I'm going to
Yep.
put it in there
Love
and
that.
trying to use so like trying to take advantage of commercial properties.
Get
that
it.
are kind of okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Get
So
it? Love
Got
it.
awesome. All right. So
You're rare. There aren't a lot of people that are looking for that. So I love this conversation. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm trying to, and there's a family that just passed it down to their kids, and their kids have already moved to Florida and are spending their money and are liquidating their property. So there's a couple
Perfect.
that I'm working with the real estate agents. So 100+ year property, what would your worry be? What are the things you're most looking for when you're looking to buy something like that?
Where's it located?
It's in Delaware City, Delaware, so it's like near the water,
Okay.
but it's an older property.
Yeah, I just ask only because it 100 years old in some places is different than 100 years old in other places.
Yeah, so it's a newer one. There's, I have 1,700 of properties. You probably have some around your area too. So
I do, sadly.
Yeah.
With the old 8x8 and 10x10 chestnut beams in the middle. Yeah, I've got some of those. But I think the key is, really understanding. So I build a rent box in that case, because the thing that I want to most understand is, when my business has outgrown the asset, what's my actual opportunity for market rent?
Okay.
Where am I going to actually be? Because for me, I fell in love with a commercial property that came up and I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And admittedly, I'm buying it because when I'm out of it, it has much, much, much higher upside.
Mhm.
So what I look for is, on any of that older stuff, it's the same thing as it usually is, which is I'm looking for foundation. I'm looking for roof. I'm looking for heating system. I'm looking for, because it's going to be some sort of a public space, I'm now, more looking at like lead remediation, things like that. That sort of thing when you're looking at something that old. And that's usually anything that's more than 50 years old. But the element that you introduce is it being a commercial property. That's the element that makes it really different than everything else. So, is it retail commercial on the first, Adam, or is it just commercial?
So I'm talking to the city.
Yeah.
They're trying to redo this area. And
course.
so they really want to have retail there. They'll let you on a few year basis. If I'm getting in there and I'm redoing it, they've been pretty clear that they're like, hey, if you're going to move it to retail, you might be able to set it up as a service thing. And but they want you within a couple of years having a customer focus, because they're trying to get more foot traffic down there, and they're working really hard on that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird situation. I've never had to deal with I only have one rental, but I have a family, my family also has some properties, but nobody's ever dealt with this commercial side of it.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to see what are the main things someone who kind of has done plenty of work would look for on an older property, knowing that you are probably going to have customers in there within a few years, even if I'm renting it myself.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, like I said, I think the big thing is just making sure that they're not going to, that you're grandfathered in on things. Like a sprinkler system is going to cost you 30 G's.
Okay.
To put a sprinkler system in there is going to suck, and they look crappy and they're expensive, and they're in a small retail space like that. The argument is, it's not going to save anybody anyway. You know, if there's a fire, like because a computer blew up, they're gonna run out the front door. Like it's not going to save anybody anyway. So that's one of the conversations I would have, is making sure they're not going to make you sprinkle it. And then, like I said, when it comes to retail, just making sure that, you know, the space has been kind of clean up, i.e. not, you know, kind of lead free. Because you never know, you know, what issue that might come. Those rules are only getting more and more difficult. And the last thing you would want to have happen is you have to shut down to make it that. So you're better off doing that before you open up, before it goes live. And then it puts you in a better position too, with when you're going to rent it, it's going to be a done property. So
yeah, there's two things I would add to that, because I have a couple of these properties as well, and I've had them for 7 to 10 years. One thing that got me was signage.
Interesting.
Right?
Yep, sure.
Signage, the rules around signage changed, and that may affect the architecture. So that would be something I would definitely check out, signage. And then ADA, handicap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
the bathroom's not ADA. I already looked at that.
Yeah, that, and also, so that got me, but also access to the living quarters. Needed the stairway was too narrow, which caused a big ass problem. When you have that mix between retail, right, the public, and then, you know, clients at the top, it's just a lot more ADA than I had expected.
Usually in depending on the retail business, ADA it can be a thing, or it can also not be a thing.
Right.
That's where it's really important. Yeah. So the other thing too is making sure the challenge is they can say, here's the retail we would allow there. And then you basically build it based on that. And then 5 years later, they say, yeah, we don't like those 4 things anymore, and we don't want those there anymore. So that's one of the challenges. But of the big things, the ones that you can control, it's going to be sprinkler. It's going to be, you know, the lead on the inside. It's going to be that stuff.
Yeah.
Furnace.
The other thing, the last thing I remember was windows. One of the big things they wanted on our building, like after we owned it for 5 years, is they wanted us to, they actually sent us a letter strongly suggesting that we make bigger windows that face the public street.
Really?
Because they did. Yeah, they wanted bigger windows. They were too small. Because it went from being a duplex, like residential area, to mixed use to a retail corridor. So they wanted all the buildings that face this certain street. And it's the Tower District I've bitched about a lot of time on my channel. They had to have 8x8 windows or some gigantic windows.
Oh,
crazy.
Dear God.
Yeah, it was painful.
Those are cheap.
Yeah. No,
like thousands of dollars for a slab of glass.
Yeah, you had to re-engineer the frame and all.
Yeah, it's reframe everything. Yep.
Yep. So.
Okay. So when you're doing a walkthrough, if you were going and looking at this property, like if you're looking at something in that like 100-year or whatever, would you consider getting somebody who, like an inspector? Because I looked around and I was able to find a couple. You know, obviously it's more expensive, but look for a specific inspector with experience with older buildings, or like historic inspectors.
Absolutely.
I know your area probably
absolutely.
Has them too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely worth
pay
it.
for it.
Those guys that take a 5-day course, useless in this situation.
Okay.
Useless.
Useless.
And then would you I have a family member who's a general contractor and probably gonna have a go through as well. So my hope is get them to go and then have the historic inspector go through, the general contractor, and then me, all three of us with the, you know,
same time. Same time. My requirement for an inspector is that they have at least 10 years construction experience.
Okay.
I will not hire an inspector otherwise. So when I get stuck and I need an inspector because somebody canceled or whatever happened, I will not take anybody that has less than 10 years construction experience. Because a lot of the older guys, they get out of construction and they get into inspecting. And they're 1,000 times the inspector that some guy who got a 5-day cert or a 7-day cert.
Okay. Yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you nailed
it. Adam.
Good path.
Yep. Sounds like a fun project. John, we'll go back to you. I don't know if we got you, John.
Can you hear me now?
There he is. Hi, John.
Okay. Hey, I wanted to thank you both and thank everybody else who's here actually as well.
Sure.
I'm currently rented. I'm approved for a duplex hack, just so that you know. My biggest question is all about the rent box. Could you go into a little bit of detail on that?
Yeah, sure. So the rent box is much like the buy box. However, it's putting all of the weight on the rents. And the reason why that's important is because so often when landlords are selling a property, why are they selling it? They're selling it because they're financially in trouble because they can't afford to keep up with it. Why can they not afford to keep up with it? Because they don't know the rents. The rents are too low. And so I've literally bought properties where she's just like, I'm so glad to be rid of this thing. I'm so tired of writing checks. Well, she was renting out 3-bedroom, 1-bath for $1,200 a month. I bought the building. One of the units was Section 8. Within 60 days, I was getting $1,950 for that unit that she was getting $1,200 for. She was just lazy and didn't know what she was doing. I got $750 a month more for the same unit, not making one improvement, because that's what the market was. And she just wasn't in tune, and should have been better off hiring me as a consultant. I would have gotten her a lot more money for the house, but I go in there and I get it for 19. And then the one on the downstairs, I just said, listen, you've been here for 5 years. Here's what the market rents are. So basically Dion's binder strategy. I've been doing that via text message for about a decade, where I'm just like, hey, I own the building here, here, and here. I've seen these units. This is what they're listed at. I would love to have you stay, but I need to get a little bit closer. I need to get closer to that number. And then having that conversation, and then that person came back and they're paying 15. So I got 300 out of one, 750 out of the other. It's 1050 a month. Here's the thing. That property made money, barely, but it made money at what I bought it at. Now it makes 24% or something return on capital. So the rent box really is important with setting your market from a rents perspective, because I was told for 2 years by every other person that lost to me with all the other properties I bought, you're overpaying, you're overpaying, you're overpaying, you're just paying too much, you're just buying everything you can, you're overpaying. I wasn't overpaying. I asked one of the guys who I call him my permanent silver medal because he always finishes second to me. And on the last one, I gave him a little like tin of silver polish just to rub it in. He's a local investor too. But he doesn't understand that he was counting those units at $2,200 a side. I was counting them at 3,000 a side. I was able to offer 525 based on my numbers. He was dumb enough to offer 507 based on his numbers, which were 2,200 a month. I make way more money at $3,000 a month aside on 525 than he does anywhere near on 507 at 2,200. So that is the constant difference that I see, is that it helps you create more opportunity. It helps you create, the buy box is critical. And when you add rent box to it, it actually gets you that next level that might help you find 1 or 2 more deals, because it's a landlord that's getting out of it. It's not a fit for them anymore. There's not enough margin there. They're too afraid to raise rents. They don't have the personality for it. Those are all things that are possible. But that's where the rent box. And so the way that we do the rent box is we basically will look at a given market. We'll look at what the quality of the rental is. We'll look at where the location of the rental is. We'll look at what it's renting for, what it's marketed for. We'll watch it for a couple of weeks, and we can go backwards 2 weeks. So because you're not having to do it for 60 or 90 days because rents change too much in a 90-day period, we're only going back 2 weeks to look at what did the last 2 weeks worth of units post for, and did they get rented? And a lot of times you'll see them flip to get rented, and that's just a 2-week exercise, but that can vastly improve what you can offer on that asset, because you can sit there and know, I can get $3,000 a month on this. And that deal that I bought that he was thinking 2,200, I'm $3,000 a month on that. And that property makes like $1,700 a month. That one duplex makes $1,700 a month, because it's that much more profit that he just didn't think was there. And quite frankly, the existing owner wasn't properly managing it. They didn't know what they had.
The rent box idea and tracking rents down to the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's frankly never been more important than the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
Right? We have seen, inflation, rent jumps, pretty astronomical. So knowing what rents are, right? Rents are part of your spreadsheet that all of you are building. It's the income column, obviously. Knowing that number and feeling good about it, it's important. And if you think rents are 3 and somebody else thinks they're 2,200, and if you're right, you can pay a little more and the yield actually goes up.
It does.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah. It's one of those core tenets of how you create more opportunity than your competition.
Yep. John, did you have a question
mentally?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the challenge for me mentally is that I'm paying about 40% below market rate for where I'm renting right now.
Sure.
Which I'm very happy about.
I bet.
I bet. Yeah.
But that means when I go into the duplex, more than likely it's going to be an alligator for sure while I live there and take money away from the savings for the next property.
It has to be.
So there'll be more upside when I move out, like you said.
There's going to be more upside, but the bigger thing too is that, you know, when buying that type of an asset now, they're going to base it on market rent and what you need to be able to provide for, because so the way that they base the value of a duplex is always based on comps. And then there's a side number of, but it also, there's this, they do the income approach as well, but they put all the weight on the comp side, what else it sold like. The issue is that that's where I've found an inefficiency in the system. They only care what the last one sold for. I don't give two rips what the last one sold for. I only care about what the rents are. I don't care what it's sold for. I care about what my rate is and what it's sold for, because that's what makes my payment, and my payment is minus, you know, from my rents, which is my gross income. So that's where there's huge opportunity in the market with these dupes, tries, and quads, is that most real estate agents that list multifamily are not multifamily specialists. They don't know the first thing about how to calculate proper yield or return on capital. And they certainly don't know what rents are. Like, you know, so you've done some work, you know that you're 40% below market on rent. A lot of people have no clue, and they're just like, damn landlord trying to get rich off me single-handedly. Rents are so expensive, and you're 40% under market, right? And so that's the thing, is that most renters don't even know. They really don't. I literally told somebody, I said, you know what, I think it's time for us to move on. She goes, fine, I'm happy to. I said, sounds good. Be out by the end of the month. And then she came back 3 days later and goes, I was wondering if we could, if I could stay. Yeah. Why? She went out and she looked at the rents. She saw what the market was. And I told her, no, I'm not interested. We're going to move on. She's like, well, I might not be out in time. I said, that's okay. I said, on the 1st, you're going to get another notice saying that your rent's going up to what market is. And so that way it's like, for us, it was the way to get rid of a tenant that was just constantly fussing and whining about nothing. And they were just a nightmare to manage and deal with. And it was like, sounds good. We don't ever want to displace somebody. And so what we're waiting for is for them to basically qualify themselves in as, I need to be replaced.
Yep. Very, very cool. We have a little bit over 10 minutes. We will try to keep, we got 3 more hands up. John, did you have one final question?
I do. Where are you looking to find those rents?
I make them myself. So I look at Facebook I look at all the places that I would post it for rent. I look at Facebook Marketplace. I look at Craigslist. I look at Zillow. I look at everywhere that they post, you know, because every city or every town has a different place. A lot of towns, it's Facebook Marketplace, it's Craigslist. A lot of cities, it's Zillow, it's apartments.com. It really matters what your market is and where you find a majority of your rentals. And so for me, it's almost always Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and a little bit of Zillow.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. Thank you, John. Paul, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
I wanted to go back to tenant turnover a little bit. In my experience, that seems to be the great profit killer.
Yes.
Mine too.
It sounds like you guys are getting the tenants to pay for pretty much all of the repair costs.
I am.
And I seem to constantly getting stuck with significant costs every turnover. So how can I prevent that?
Great question. So from my perspective, that's actually part of the course. We have how we basically document that stuff, how we basically put in our lease that you are receiving the unit professionally cleaned, you know, essentially error-free or issue-free. And then you have 5 days upon moving in to report anything. Otherwise, it's on you. And so for me, when they leave, I have tenants where I literally put cleaners in there and 3 people are done in an hour and I get a bill for $100. I am ecstatic to pass that bill for only $100 onto the tenant. I just had somebody move out that constantly deems themselves on social media as a clean freak. And she's the biggest the worst tenant I've ever seen. She had a $600 cleaning bill. She lives like an absolute pig. And I was like, you self-identify as a clean freak and you can't spell clean. It's not even close to clean. And so I took a $600 bill out of her deposit and enjoyed every minute of it. And I didn't charge her for my time to set up the cleaner, you know? And so it's truly, if I go in front of a judge, My time is the cost of doing business, but the cleaner's time isn't. And so I got a $600 invoice that I literally just passed on to her, or made as part of her deposit return, is what it was.
Yeah, the key to charging back is really documenting the move-in
It is.
process. The lease, the contract, take pictures. Now you can take video.
Yep.
Even better. That is really the game changer, is documenting. It used to be pictures. Now we actually do some video sometimes.
Yep.
So
we do as well.
Okay. And then what about when the repairs exceed the deposit?
I send them a bill.
Really?
Yep, absolutely.
And you get it?
Sometimes.
Not always.
Not always, but sometimes.
So they're just out of their goodness of their heart, they pay the bill, or how does that work?
Oh no, my letter's maybe a little bit nastier than that. It is, here's your deposit, here's all the deductions that we took, here's what still your responsibility. We hope to hear back from you in the next 2 weeks. If they haven't sent something in within 2 weeks, we send them another certified letter. Costs us $4. And if we don't hear back from them again, then we decide whether or not we want to take it to small claims. Because in most states, when you take somebody to small claims and you get the judgment against them, if they will agree to some sort of a payment. If they don't pay on that payment, it usually issues a bench warrant. And then the next time they get pulled over in a car or whatever, they get arrested.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've done small claims. I would say my average collection is 30%, but you just never know. About every year or so, I get several $1,000s from past claims because of people got inheritance or whatever. It's on the record, and that will be paid when monies are coming. So you may not get the money the first time, first month, the first year, but I'm still shocked. I mean, I just got an $8,700 check for something I did 2 years ago. It was pretty shocking.
Okay, and that's for filing a small claims report.
Yep. So yeah, small, and that's the thing is, if you've sent them those letters, you'll go sit in front of the judge, say, hey, I've sent them all these letters. There's been no response. Here's proof of all the work having been done.
Yep.
They'll ask the person, do you have any defense to that? They'll say, well, but he's a jerk. Well, I'm not an $8,700 jerk. So it is what it is. And you're going to have to pay. And that's how it goes.
Okay.
And they lose.
Okay.
And then you try and work out some sort of a payment plan that they can afford, which is, can be $10 or $20 a month.
Okay. And if somebody's in a house for say 5 years and the house needs to be repainted and the deposit doesn't cover that, is that something you still would pass on to the tenant, or is that just wear and tear?
It depends on the above and beyond stuff. Most of the time that's wear and tear.
Yeah,
but if
most
they
of the
put
time
a
it's
bunch of holes and massive work, then I would show the total bill. And then I would say, but here's the stuff that was just beyond the pale, and so I might charge them a fraction of that.
Yeah. In my situation, 5 years, I would probably charge them for the holes, the repair of the holes, but I would do the painting, for example.
Okay.
I agree.
And things like a super dirty oven and refrigerator, is that wear and tear, or is that?
Nope. That's your disgusting. Yep.
Yeah.
I charge. Yep. Absolutely. And in fact, depending on the state that you're in, I actually make a price sheet as part of my list and say, if you leave it dirty, here's what the cost is for us to clean it.
Okay.
Yeah. I love how many notes Gina's taking. She's written a book in this time. It's been awesome. I've been watching how many notes you're taking. It's good.
Paul, do you have one last question, bud?
No, thank you.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
Gina, we're going to play ping pong. We'll go one at a time. Gina, Adam, because you both asked. So we'll go Gina first. See how fast these are.
You're on mute.
Oh,
I see you there. You're on mute.
Oh, maybe she took her hand down.
Thank you.
There you go.
My question is, when's your next live boot camp start?
So we do probably in January is then when the next one starts. I think we have like 2 or 3 spots left because we limit it to 15 people, 15 to 17 people. We don't go any more than that because it's 2 hours a week. And I want to make sure that everybody gets questions about the content, but also about whatever issue they're dealing with at that time. And then the course, but you can sign up. So we cover coursework in there too. So usually people sign up for the course and then they do the boot camp when the time fits them. It's not one of those things that runs out. So you still have time to access it anytime in the first year. And then if you have like an acute problem where you're just like, Matt, I need you to come in here and kind of solve this for me. We have like a 3-hour block where I just sit down and we get together and we brainstorm. That's just one-on-one. So we have all 3 of those options.
And so do we just sign up on your website?
Yep. Yeah. You can look right at the website, look at the syllabus, read through it, see that there's value there. And then we're adding one that's specifically around lead. I had an $83,000 lead order.
Oof.
So I'm going to teach people exactly how to defeat the orders.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching that in the course, and that's nothing additional. It's going to be in the course for those that are in it, because I can't teach that on YouTube.
Yeah,
All right, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Adam?
Alrighty. Question on the commercial property thing again. Is managing rentals like commercial? What's the big differences? I guess the question's kind of for both.
It's worse.
Okay.
You have to have a better response time.
But also you can charge, they assume a lot more responsibilities.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
I
worse
learned that the hard way when I had my own warehouse. I saw when they were like, I was like, it's broken. They were like, yeah, tough shit. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's sometimes called triple net.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. There's the bonus side, like Mike was saying, which is it's a big bonus, when it comes to like triple net and then paying all that stuff. The downside is that if there is something that really is the landlord problem, you better respond really fast. Otherwise you're going to get damages.
Yeah. Damages. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Gina, do you have another question? Was there going to go 1 for 1 here? Okay. All right. We got just a little bit of time here. When you structured your thing with your own business and your own property, were they separate LLCs, and did you do a cross billing like through accountants or anything? Do you know what I mean? Were you in the LLC paying rich?
I
Okay,
did.
good.
Yeah, that's the way Mike did it. So I have, so I do it, but I do trust to the LLC.
Okay.
Yep.
Any particular reason you did one or the other? I mean, not ask for accounting advice here. I have my own, but it just,
Sure. I do trust. I did the trust because the cost of acquisition in LLCs, all the extra insurances, all the extra taxes, everything and it doesn't offer you the protections that people do. I have 9 attorneys. I had one attorney that literally got sued. They went after both of her LLCs, and then they got to her privately. So she's just like, if they're single, unless they are real partners, if you have an actual real partner that you're not related to, or they have separate finances, then yeah, LLC. If it's you and your wife, you and domestic partner, whatever, it's nope.
Yeah. I set them up as LLCs because it was really separate and different from anything else I was doing.
Yeah.
Really easy to create the separation.
Yep.
Okay. And then in that same vein, rent box, would you set up like kind of a rent box or anything like when you were doing on the commercial side? Is it kind of the same thing?
I set up a rent box for everything. I want to look at price per square foot. I want everything I do a rent box on, because that's what tells me what I can pay.
Yep. Because again, I may not be there forever, so I want to know my exit. So I didn't know it was called rent box, but I did the same exact thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Very cool. Matt, bring us home. Wrap it up, buddy. Thanks again.
Yeah, I mean, excited to do this with you guys as always. You guys are well on your path. You couldn't be with a better investor. I mean, Mike's got the chops to prove it, over 20 years. So it was a pleasure spending time with you guys. I do a live stream on Sundays, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, usually.
You're about a half hour late.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I'm it's all done. I'm done by 1 o'clock on the Eastern, on the East Coast. But yeah, do the live stream there. Come hang out, ask questions, but follow me on Instagram, because I actually update all of my projects. It's Lumberjack Landlord on Instagram. I update all of my project work on that site, so you guys see exactly the work that we're doing. It's fun to watch most days, but it's fun, more fun for you guys, because you don't have to write the check. I have to write the check. So it's less fun for me, but yeah, watch that and you'll see projects all the time and people talking about them.
Matt, you're amazing. You do a great job.
Thanks,
this 2 hours, once again, showed you why you're the guy on the field, whether it was talking about prices or cost. 4321 was just awesome to start this. 9th grade dropout, doing amazing things. So whether you're 6 figures in debt like Dion, or you don't have this, real estate investing is a skill. You can learn it. You can get better. If you do it for 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years, your chances of being wealthy are really, really, really good, guys. Take care of yourself. Have fun. Bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.